There is hardly a knitter who doesn't like the look and the feel of the fabric created by brioche stitch, especially two-color brioche, because it makes the amazing brioche texture look even more magical with the fascinating color play. But there is hardly a beginner knitter who wouldn't be intimidated to try knitting two-color brioche. While the stitch is not as easy as garter stitch or stockinette, it's not really difficult, as long as we follow the steps outlined in the pattern and understand the logic behind them. Let's give it a try. Brioche stitch can't be worked on straight needles. We'll need either a pair of double-pointed needles or a circular needle, because we're gonna slide stitches from one tip of the needle to the other once in a while. I'll use a pair of double-pointed needles, and I'll use chunky yarn in 2 shades of blue. We can work on any number of stitches, but an even number of stitches will give us a clean repeat. An odd number of stitches will make the project symmetrical. So we are not worried about symmetry here, right? So we'll cast on an even number of stitches, and we'll start with 10 stitches. So I have 10 stitches right here. Use any cast on you like, just stay away from cast ons that are too stretchy, okay? Now let's move on to row 1 of the pattern. That's the setup row, and that's the row where we attach color B. So we started with color A. That's usually, it usually looks better if this color is the darkest of the two, so I cast on stitches with the darker shade of blue. And now it's time to attach the second color, color B. And we attach it by simply tying it to the strand of color A. Just like this, with a simple knot, and then move the knot up as close to the stitch as you can. That's it. We'll work with selvages, because the two-color brioche stitch usually has sloppy edges, and we'll use two stitches to make nice neat edge. So we're gonna slip the first stitch and purl the last stitch of every row, and that's exactly what we're gonna do in this row as well. So we use color B, that's the lighter color in my case, and we slip a stitch. Slip it purlwise, insert the tip of the right needle from right to left into the stitch, and keep the yarn at the back of the work, just like this. So slip this first stitch, and then knit 1. That's easy, right? And now we're gonna make a yarn over and slip the next stitch. So I make a yarn over, and then I slip again purlwise the next stitch, just like this. And then we repeat this sequence. We knit 1, then make a yarn over and slip the stitch. Knit 1, make a yarn over and slip the stitch. And that's usually easier to do when you bring the yarn on top of the left needle and slip this strand and the stitch in just one motion, like this. So knit a stitch, bring the yarn on the left needle, and slip both the strand and the stitch. And we repeat that until we come to the last stitch, and that's our other selvage, so we're gonna purl it. Just like this. And in this row, we already slide stitches, so that's that fun part. So we simply push the stitches until they come to the other tip of the needle, just like this. If you use a circular needle, it would be a longer way, so you're gonna push it along the whole cable of the circular needle. On double-pointed needles, it's easier and faster. Why we push stitches here? Because we're gonna work every row. We're gonna alternate colors in every row. So the first row is worked with the color B, the lighter blue, and the next row is gonna be worked in the darker blue, in color A. And if we keep stitches over here and turn the work, there is no way we can work with this color, right? Because we need this particular strand. So that's why we slip stitches, and now we can work with color B, with color A, sorry. And that would be row 2. And in this row, we're gonna use the darker shade of blue. Slip one stitch, Then again, make a yarn over and slip one, and we know already that it's faster to do when we place the yarn on top of the left needle. So we slip the strand and the stitch in just one motion. And then we're gonna purl together this yarn over, the one that we made in previous row, and the stitch that comes with it, because these two are kind of paired. If you look on the other side of the work, you will see that they kind of come together, and we're gonna treat them as one stitch. So we're gonna purl them together just like this, and that's our pattern repeat. So again, slip one with the yarn over, bring the yarn to the front, and purl the yarn over of the previous row and the stitch. Purl them together. Slip, purl, slip, purl. And we do it until we come to the last stitch. And this stitch is a selvage. We're gonna purl it. See, it becomes a bit sloppy, so I'm gonna pull the yarn to make it neat, and just keep an eye on it, okay? Because this yarn could get loose and then it will get all loopy, and we don't need that. That was row 2, and after we finish this row, we turn the work. No sliding here. We just turn the work because we have 2 strands here, right? Now we need color B, and we have it right here. Row 3, move the yarn in color A, that's this one, move it to the back of the work, and then bring the yarn in color B, this one, over the yarn of color A. So this way we keep the colors at the back, so they are not actually twisted in the front, and they don't ruin the look of the edge. So we bring this one to the back, and we bring this one on top of it, over it, and we use color B to make this row. And that's gonna start with a slip one, that's our selvage, and then we make a yarn over and slip one. Like we know it, we place the yarn on top of the left needle, or you can make it separately. You can just make a yarn over and then slip a stitch. And then we purl together the yarn over of the previous row and the stitch, just like this. And we repeat it. Yarn over, slip one, purl together. Yarn over, slip one, purl together. Yarn over, slip one, purl together, and we do it to the last stitch, and then we purl this stitch. That was row 3, and after this row we slide the stitches to the other tip of the needle, just like this. You know why? Because we need this yarn again, right? And it is hanging at this side, so we slide the stitches. Row 4, we make it with color A, that's our darker shade of blue, and we start with the slip one. And then we have these 2 stitches together, the yarn over from the previous row and the knit stitch, and we knit them together. And then we make a yarn over and slip one. Again, knit together, make yarn over, slip one. And we keep doing that until we come to the last stitch, and that's going to be right here. Again, the stitch is a bit loopy, so I'm gonna pull the strand to make it neater and tighter, and purl it, because that's our selvage. That was row 4, and now the last row of the pattern repeat, that would be row 5. After row 4 we turn the work because we have all yarns at this side, no need to slide anything. For row 5 we would need color B again, so we're gonna do the same trick. We're gonna bring color A, the darker shade, to the back, and we're gonna bring color B on top of it and use it to work this row. We start with the slip one, and then we knit together the stitch and the yarn over, and make a yarn over and slip one. Knit together, make a yarn over and slip one. Knit together, make a yarn over and slip one. And we'll do it to the last stitch and purl the last stitch. After this row we're gonna slide the stitches to the other side, because you know what, the yarn is right here. That's the pattern repeat. Repeat rows 2 through 5. The first row was the setup row. We're not going to repeat that one, but rows 2 through 5 we're going to repeat, and that will give us a nice pattern. If you're not sure what color you used for the previous row, look at your stitches and you will see that if most of the stitches are done in color B, in lighter shade of blue, like I have right here, that means that the row was worked in color B, and that means that the next row should be worked in color A. So basically what happens, we work in a variation of knit 1, purl 1 ribbing, but we treat these paired stitches, the yarn over plus stitch, we treat them as one stitch, and we give a yarn over to the empty stitch, the stitch that doesn't have a yarn over. So that's basically the logic behind this pattern. And once you work and work and work, you're gonna have a nice pattern like this with a rich texture that looks especially chunky if you use thicker yarn. And when you are ready to bind off stitches, wait until you come to the row worked in color A, because we started with color A, right? So it will make sense to bind off stitches in color A as well. So right now I'm right at that spot, and I'm about to start a row worked in color A, but I'm not gonna follow the brioche pattern anymore. I'm gonna simply bind off stitches in pattern. That means I'm gonna knit stitches that are knits, and I'm gonna purl stitches that look like purls. So I'll start with knitting the selvage, and then the next stitch is the knit. I'm not giving it a yarn over anymore because we are not working in brioche pattern anymore, right? We're just binding off stitches, and we pass one over the other. The next pair is a purl stitch with the yarn over, so I bring the yarn to the front and purl it, and then pass it over, and then another knit stitch, no yarn overs here, pass it over, bring the yarn to the front, purl this pair of stitches, which is a yarn over in the stitch, pass it over, knit, pass it over. I'm gonna get some more yarn, bring the yarn to the front, purl the pair of yarn over plus stitch, pass it over, and just a few more stitches, and we are almost there. So when you are done, you can knit or purl the last stitch, it doesn't really matter. So when we are done, we get a nice pattern that starts with color A and ends with color A. Not that hard, right? When working on a bigger project, use a lifeline. It could be quite hard to pick up stitches into color brioche if you make a mistake and have to unravel part of your work. Thank you for watching this video and have a wonderful week. I'll see you in the next tutorial.